Local D.C. leaders are heading into another day of budget hearings as the council takes a closer look at Mayor Muriel Bowser's proposed 2027 spending plan. The mayor's Grow D.C. budget totals more than $21 billion, but it comes as the district faces slower revenue growth, federal job losses, and continued pressure from telework and downtown office vacancies. The mayor is recommending more than $469 million in proposed cuts. Today's hearing will focus on local business development, including possible cuts, small business support, and economic growth investment. But it's not just D.C. focusing on the budget. School districts across our area are as well. And joining me now for more on DMV budgets and the impacts we're seeing on local schools, American University Professor at the Baker School of Education, Jennifer Steele. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Can you give us, a quick overview of the current proposed budget pressures really facing schools in the area? What's driving these potential cuts that we're seeing right now? Some of them are massive cuts.
So I think what's driving what we're seeing, particularly in Montgomery County, Maryland, is there have been increases in teacher salaries over recent years, which is a good thing. This helps with teacher recruitment and retention, but then this increases pressure on the overall budget. And the city council has to, or the county council has to then say, can we sustain this with investments in taxes? And so the council is pushing back a little bit, and they did approve a $143 million increase on last week. But the question is, will they approve another roughly $40 million this week to make sure that they can continue to fund the supplemental staff, such as school counselors, school psychologists, mental health services, college counseling services, and athletic directors, or will they have to make modest cuts? Just also to put this in context, $40 million would be about 1% of the Montgomery County budget for schools.
I'm curious, we saw some districts use federal COVID relief funds essentially to hire staff, maybe launch new programs, and we're seeing that now ending. In your opinion, is that part of the current budget pressure that we're seeing coming from this funding cliff kind of in front of them?
Absolutely. So when schools received extra amounts of money, they made needed investments. There were areas where they wanted to shore up. And coming out of the pandemic, student mental health was one of those. So this is a trend that we see. And Montgomery County in particular increased spending on school mental health services, I believe, by about 24%. So it was much larger than that. It was about 241%. So they made massive investments in student mental health, and now they're finding, how are we going to sustain these expenditures without new infusions of federal money?
Something we're seeing in Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Fairfax County Public Schools, some of the biggest school districts in our area are dealing with these massive education budget cuts in front of them. For perspective, how do the cuts in our area compare to the rest of the nation?
Well, the DC area spends more per student than the rest of the nation. The District of Columbia spends about $33,000 per student, which leads the nation, or nearly leads the nation, in per pupil expenditures. Montgomery County at about $21,000 per student is on par for our region and ahead of the nation, which is about $17,000 per student. So, and the magnitude of cuts that we're seeing proposed are on the order of 1%. So, but there are always going to be trade-offs of how much do we invest in raising salaries for teacher recruitment and retention, because about 90% of spending in schools is, particularly in Montgomery County, is staffing. And so how do we make sure that we're keeping great people, recruiting great people, but also keeping the supplementary services that help students beyond the classroom?
Right. How do we balance a budget in the mix of all of that as well? American University Professor at the Baker School of Education, Jennifer Steele, certainly appreciate the conversation and perspective this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be right back after the break.